Hey, I'm not MAGA, don't scroll, and thank you so much for this prompt because it is one of my favorite subjects. In fact, I might go live later for the very first time just to have a discussion about why the two-party system needs to die. Where do I even start? Because there's so many reasons. We could start with the founders because a lot of people think that things are the way that the founders intended them to be, and they, cling to this 1776 mentality, and nothing should ever change from that. Well, if that's true, George Washington, our first president, was strictly anti-political party. He wrote extensively about it. He was not a Republican or a Democrat and felt that the establishment of political parties at all was going to be detrimental to the country. It was going to have a negative effect because it encourages partisanship. Because when you assign a designation to something and you start identifying as that thing, then you take the intellectual property away from it, right? You take the intellectual aspect out of it. You take rational thinking out of it, and it becomes this my team. I'm voting for my team because I'm on that team, even if there's something that your team's doing that you don't particularly agree with, that you don't particularly think is good, but you've joined that team. And so now you're voting down the line with that team. And if there's only two, then the other team is just the other. Everyone is now the opposition, right? Because they're seen as completely opposing instead of working synergistically. And so it's now about othering. Oh, you can't let those dirty Democrats win because they want to take all these things from you. You can't let these Republicans win because they're going to extort everyone. They are. But that's how it's working out. Is it's used as a divisionist tactic, and it's worked incredibly well. One of the main problems that I run into here is Republicans flat out rejecting empirical information because it's coming from someone that they perceive as a Democrat, because in their eyes there can only be two things: you're a Republican, or in this case MAGA now, or you're a Democrat, and Democrats are bad. And so it doesn't matter if I give someone a complete breakdown of empirical evidence of exactly why something is the way that it is. They will reject that information and believe lies simply because they perceive the information as coming from a Democrat. And so that opposition right there, that perception of one side is right, one side is wrong, period, means that people are going to believe BS. They're going to believe lies because they've been trained to not believe the other side. Even though I'm a registered independent, I just simply vote Democrat because I'm not a narcissist or a psychopath. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And that's become the sole defining characteristics of what differentiates the political parties is people that vote with the Democrats are voting for the collective good of as many people as they can possibly reach. And people that vote Republican are voting for what is going to serve my interest the most. What do I want the most? Me. And but past that, there's so many different factions within political parties that just aren't being represented. This isn't good for anybody. The two-party system isn't good for anybody. There are people that are classified as Republicans and voting Republican, even though they do not want to. They could have one sole defining characteristic of being pro-capitalism. They could be pro-choice. They could be pro-healthcare. They could be pro all these things, but also be pro-capitalism. And because you're pro-capitalism, you're with the Republicans. And there could be someone on the left who is completely anti-capitalism. And because they're anti-capitalism, they're classified as on the left. They're now classified as a Democrat. But turns out that they are staunchly against abortion, which doesn't align with the agenda of the left. But because they're anti-capitalist, here they are over here. That's not real representation. It's a system that meets the least needs of people possible, right? There can't possibly be two parties. You've got libertarians that are lumped in with the right, and they really don't want to be lumped in with Republicans. They want to be viewed as their own separate thing, but many of them vote Republican because that just most closely aligns, but not really with them. And then you have people in the Green Party that are associated with Democrats because sometimes they vote for Democrats and they don't want to be associated or affiliated or identified as Democrats either, right? And so because the Electoral College exists and is based on the two-party system, both have to go, right? We can have third parties here, but none of them ever have a chance of winning. And so no third party has ever actually gained any traction or expanded to the point of really being recognized as a political contender, because they know, oh, the Electoral College is going to be an all or nothing Republican or Democrat. No independent has ever won, period. They've never even gotten any electoral. The only independent to ever even receive any electoral votes was all the way back at Roosevelt. 0 electoral votes have gone to a third party since then, and that is the only time it's ever happened. And so that system makes it to where new political parties that actually closely represent people's morals and values don't exist. There's tons of Republicans that don't want to be associated with MAGA, but they're stuck, and vice versa. So if we had, say, 6 political parties, that would mean that every single vote going down the line, every single bill being voted on would have to be multi-partisan, because with the two-party system, there's always this situation of one party gains power and they undo everything that the previous administration just did. Like 70 of Trump's executive orders were undoing Biden's executive orders. You think that the next Democrat's not just going to do the same thing to all Trump's orders? And so one side goes, no, we've had everything taken from us. And the other side goes, yay, take everything from them. Right? And it just goes back and forth, and no progress ever happens. I mean, we had the least productive Congress in history the last 4 years, and that's going to continue because the bipartisanship doesn't allow for things to ever really move. But if compromise was the language of everything, and that had to be the thing because no party could ever gain a majority and bully and dominate the other ones, then we would get actual progress. We would get actual compromise. We would have way more people getting way more of their wants and needs met, because they would have more representation and more cooperation going into those bills, rather than one side just trying to bully the other side and dominate them. And so I'm going to cut this off. It's already running long. Maybe we'll do it on a live, but those are the base premises of why the two-party system has to go along with the Electoral College.